She's Manjari Chandra. She's a functional nutritionist and practices nutritional medicine. Manjari has worked for leading hospitals in India, namely Max Healthcare, Manipal Hospitals, Columbia Asia, and many more. She's also the founder of BONATRA and ManjariWellness. She is here to discuss the topic that is unlocking youthful energy, a guide to nourishing foods. Over to you, Miss Manjari, and please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Karishma. Thank you for the introduction. As you mentioned, I practice nutritional medicine. Essentially, what we're trying to do is use nutrition as one of the major modalities to not just manage, but also put into remission most cardiometabolic autoimmune conditions. And of course, oncology is also a part of it. One of the things that happens when you practice functional medicine or nutritional medicine is that, many times it's dependent on the compliance of the person who's trying to help themselves, and we are partnering with them to help them put their diseases in remission. Compliance becomes a big issue because this is not like a pill which you can just take and it works. This is something which means that you keep changing your food, your lifestyle, your movement, your sleep patterns, generally everything that you look at in life. And therefore, counseling, constant hand-holding becomes a part of this whole journey. Today, of course, the topic that I'm going to talk about is pretty interesting. It essentially talks about how we can sort of slow down aging and keep ourselves more and more youthful, and how what you eat can be a big contributor to that. So, Dr. Karishma, if you could please share the slides, that'd be helpful.
Just sharing them.
Yes, please. So So we'll be talking about, generally how do you unlock more energy and how do you can help yourself stay youthful and really not age very fast. So let's go ahead, please. The next slide. So just first understand what is energy. A lot of people today complain of constant fatigue, tiredness, inability to do things, have 10 things to do, but are only able to finish certain amount of their day. And are not able to complete all their tasks for lack of physical or mental energy. Now, this energy that we talk about essentially is also chemically or biochemically something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy that the cells have, which is actually what the mitochondria make. Our body can create energy in few pathways. This type of ATP or adenosine triphosphate, which is adenosine with 3 phosphate units. This can be created by multiple mechanisms, but the most common one is known as glycolysis. Glycolysis is just the breakdown of sugar. When you eat sugar, it is broken down into glucose, and glucose is broken down in the mitochondria into ATP or adenosine triphosphate. Essentially, one molecule of glucose produces around 32 ATP of energy. Now, this whole pathway, can we go back, please? This whole glycolytic pathway is the most common form of energy production, and it's a steady form of energy production. Most of the time, because we tend to eat foods which have carbohydrates, which will break down into glucose, most of us rely on glycolysis. However, our muscles can also make some amount of energy. I'm not going into that because that is very little energy, and these are systems which are not regular systems. I'd like to focus on the second type of energy generation, which is also called ketosis in normal language, or it's aerobic lipolysis, which is the breakdown of lipids or fats to release energy. Now, in our body, there are triglycerides that can be broken down, and the fat that is stored and that we eat can be broken down into energy. How this happens is that when fat is broken down into energy, it essentially enters the same Krebs cycle, which is the electron transport Krebs cycle for glycolysis, through the acetyl coenzyme A. We'll just understand that in the diagram. But remember that ketosis, or breaking down of lipids, or lipolysis, which is done aerobically using oxygen, is actually not only a great way of releasing energy, it is also a cleaner energy and a more efficient energy producing pathway. And the thing is that it will only happen when your body is devoid of the quick glucose. When there is less glucose available, that's when the body shifts to breaking down this form of fat. So typically fasting, even overnight fasting of 12 hours, can activate mobilization of fat or aerobic lipolysis. Let's do the next one. Okay, so it's actually very simple. If you look at the glycolytic pathway, the glucose is broken down into 3 carbon molecules, pyruvate, and then eventually into acetyl coenzyme A, which is then used up to make ATP. Of course, oxygen is converted into carbon dioxide in the process. How fat enters the same pathway is either through triglycerides, which are converted into fatty acids, which can be changed into acetyl coenzyme A, and they enter the same pathway to make ATP, or ketone bodies from which can be broken down into acetyl coenzyme A. So if you look at fat chemically, everything which we eat as fat is broken down into 2 parts, fatty acid and glycerol. Those fatty acids are also made from triglyceride, which is the storage form of fat, not the best form of storage, of course. And these fatty acids also enter the same pathway and create ATP. As we discussed, the beta oxidation of fatty acids, or ketosis, which is breaking down of ketone bodies, is making of ketone bodies, is actually a much efficient pathway and also cleaner for the body. Also does not create too much of waste product in the body. So that's the energy pathway that we should tag on. And I will, of course, cover this in detail later, but a point to remember here is that unless you reduce the amount of circulating glucose by not eating glucose or carbohydrates or fasting, there will never be a switch to breaking down triglycerides and fats in the body. Yeah. So if you look at aging, it's a very complex phenomena. There's a lot happening at the cellular and intracellular level, which causes physiological aging. Now, the bioregulatory pathways that become a part of aging, of course, include, DNA damage, shortening of the telomere, which is the end of the DNA, which protects the frailty, or the ends of the DNA are protected by the telomere. And every time there's cell division happening, there's shortening of the telomere. Epigenetic alterations, which is our exposure to various environmental factors that change our genetic expression. Then, of course, now proteostasis, which is basically making of very important proteins in the body, which is again a very complex process, from the mRNA synthesis to the amino acids that get attached for the protein, the transcription, translation of protein, which is a very complex process. It may get altered, or there may be loss in that proteostasis leading to aging. And then, of course, deregulated nutrient sensing for people who have insulin resistance, or there is a change in the AMPK pathways, the mTOR pathway. These are all pathways which are required for cellular health. Or increased amount of IGF signaling, which is essentially the growth factor, insulin-like growth factor, which stays constant. The growth hormone, if you measure it at different times of the day, it will be changing depending on diet and activity. But the IGF-1, which is the insulin-like growth factor, stays constant. So once we check it, we can understand how much growth hormone our body is making. all these things depend on food and nutritional intake. Mitochondrial dysfunction, which is loss of mitochondria, death of mitochondria, cellular senescence, which is, there is of course a normal pathway for in which, or a normal life cycle of a cell, but excessive destruction of cells, which is senescence, which happens because of loss of ability of the cell, is also one of the reasons for aging. Exhaustion of the stem cells or totipotency in the body is aging. And then if there is any neuroendocrine dysfunction, neurologically or at hormonal level, if there is any dysfunction of hormones or our neurotransmitters, it can cause changes in the communication in the cells in between them, whether it is between the neurons or any other cell in the body. And that can also be one of the factors for aging of the human body. So when a person is trying to see what they can do with their food so that they stay youthful and they have high levels of energy, these are some of the 4-5 pivotal things that become important. What should you be eating so that you can slow down aging? How much should you be eating so that you can slow down aging? How you should be eating, what format, what process, what timing should you be following, whether fasting, and if fasting, how much? That is also going to influence aging. Is there any dietary supplement or nutritional supplement that can, of course, not just improve your health, but also reduce not just aging, but increase the energy levels and energy pathways in the body? And then the personalized dietary strategies, which is, your individual nutrient gene interactions, your phenotype, genotype, and then your own biomarkers, accurate biomarkers that can be put together. So if a person has to really understand and use their food as one of the major components to not just stay young, but also have higher energy levels, these are the things that they're looking at. I'll just sum it up quickly again. What, how much, how you should be eating, what sort of nutritional supplements you required, and what is your individual genetic makeup that will interact with the food that you'll be eating. So one of the really, really important things that are not just very helpful for us to have high energy levels, but are also major regulators of dysfunction in our body are basically polyphenols and antioxidants. We're not talking about minerals and vitamins. I'm talking about plant-based, phytochemicals, which can really improve your energy levels and down-regulate aging. So oxidative stress, which is essentially the stress which contributes to death of the cells, whether it is the cellular level or even the changes in the biomolecules of our body, is something that builds up with our exposure to various forms of environmental epigenetic factors. Now, this reactive oxygen species, or free radicals as we call them, they destroy the subcellular level and the cellular integrity, and also they cause destruction of our organic molecules, which is, we know, the DNA, the lipids, proteins, etc. Now, this oxidative stress becomes more and more aggravated when we ingest food, which is not really the best. It is laden with pesticides, insecticides, or processed and packaged, has environmental poisons, or even infections can increase this oxidative stress. There are certain types of plant components. They are essentially phytochemicals that are found in plants that can really be extremely effective in keeping us young, and we call them the polyphenols. They are a subcategory of antioxidants, and polyphenols normally work on our systems by keeping us youthful by addressing these things. One, they set the metabolism, manage weight, manage chronic conditions, cell proliferation. They also enhance the sirtuin pathway, which is the decathalase action. We know that SIRT1 is the longevity gene. So when sirtuins, which are nutrient-specific genes, are addressed with the right type of nutrition, then the epigenetic information promotes human health, and it reduces senescence and improves lifespan in general. Now, besides that, so just one more thing. Besides that, polyphenols also, different categories of them, we'll go through that later, have an antioxidant effect. They also, reduce the myocyte apoptosis. They also increase the degradation of damaged mitochondria and the synthesis of new mitochondria. And of course, we're also talking about telomere lengthening, the loss of TRF2. Yeah. So next slide, please. So if you look at polyphenols, plant polyphenols, these are really active ones that I've listed here, whether it's curcumin, whether it's resveratrol, whether it's catechin. Catechin is, of course, the sources are written here, quercetin. Then you, of course, have anthocyanins, you have, hesperetin. So there are a lot of these plant polyphenols, which are found in raw foods, and the foods are here, and you can easily find many other foods. For example, olive oil, prunes, berries, broccoli, cruciferous vegetables, green tea, these are all onions, leeks, all these substances and herbs and spices are good sources of plant polyphenols. And these polyphenols, as we discussed, have a huge role in down-regulating most of the pathways that are contributing to the aging. So this is just extremely, to simplify this biochemistry for our kitchens, this is just a layout of what you can do to actually put it in practical use. So if you're looking at youthful energy, both maintaining youth and improving your energy levels, the first one is to give your stove a vacation, Try and eat more raw foods, because when you eat more raw foods, you add in extra phytochemicals. Stir fry, use raw vegetables, salads, of course, use shredded vegetables, and whatever you are doing. So not cooking is one of the ways of sort of staying more healthy, more youthful, and more energetic by adding these active plant antioxidants and phytochemicals. Bitter is better. The bitter the food is, the better it is for you. So if you look at, things like fenugreek, kale, cabbage, especially green and red cabbage, arugula, rocket leaves, all these are things that have bitterness to them, but they help your pathophysiological systems. Extreme greens, a lot of us don't eat these extreme greens. Sea vegetables, nori, wakame, algae, spirulina, chlorella, even moringa, which is an Indian green. Now, these are all are again nutritionally very, very dense and have every micronutrient and phytochemical that is required for human bioregulatory systems. The next one is fast. There's already enough being spoken about fasting and how fasting can not just prevent and treat cardiometabolic diseases, but it is your armor to stay young, youthful, and also to reduce aging in general. Now, fasting can be done in multiple ways, but one of the simpler things that can be done to ensure that you get the benefits of fasting is to eat in a time protocol, or eat just 2 times a day, sometimes once a day, because you're reversing insulin resistance, you're mobilizing ketones, you're mobilizing triglycerides, you're also every pathway, neurotransmitter, hormonal pathway in the body, even digestive enzymes get rejuvenated when you're fasting. Of course, the other pathways that we're talking about, which is the aging pathway, which is the sirtuins, the mTOR, the AMPK pathway, the IGF-1, all of these get better regulated when you do fasting of most types. And the easiest one is, of course, to do something called timed fasting, also called intermittent fasting now. Yeah. So these 9 points are basically what you can do in your kitchen to stay youthful and to stay energetic. Alcohol, a lot of research has happened on the goodness of alcohol and how it can be heart protective and all, but it actually shows a hormetic curve. A little bit of alcohol may be good, but more of it is definitely not helpful. Coffee, tea, chocolate, a lot of people will come and say caffeine should never be had, but the truth is that teas and teas do have, especially black, white, and green teas, have a lot of phytochemicals. We know of the EGCG and these phytochemicals which are very potent. Remember, caffeine is something that allows these to be bioavailable. So caffeine is helpful for you. Dark chocolate, of course, which has more cocoa, at least 70% or up to 85% is beneficial. Milk is something that down-regulates all antioxidants and phytochemicals. So adding dairy to your coffee or your milk or chocolate is one way of, completely down-regulating the benefit of tea, coffee, and chocolate. Hot and cold, one of the ways to stay healthy is to expose your body to both heat and to cold. For example, a sauna, a steam, yoga, beach, what it does is it activates your heat shock protein. Similarly, cold weather activates your longevity genes. So cold water, a cold bath, all these also activates longevity genes. We know about exercise. If you look at the supplements and nutraceuticals, again, they show the same hormetic response. Small amounts of supplements induce longevity, but very high doses may sometimes decrease the whole thing. Now, we'll just quickly go through the next 5 slices, just a list for your reference of what are foods that are really friendly when you're looking at being younger, delaying aging, and have lots of energy. So protein, which is the type of fish, which is the type of meat, poultry that you can have. If you do want to have dairy, what is the type of dairy and dairy alternatives that you can have? Next slide, please. These are your really good friends. Vegetables, all forms, greens and other vegetables. One of the things here that I've highlighted is go for the burn, eating jalapenos, chilies, hot spicy food in general increases your metabolic rate. So it not just enhances weight loss, it's good for your general metabolic pathways. So that's this is also a list of friendly foods. We're just run through them quickly. Oils, condiments, the way they should be used. For example, certain oils should not be heated, certain should be extra virgin. Some of them can be heated and can be used some of them should exclusively be used for cold cooking only. So then similarly, condiments, most condiments are good as long as they are original the way they should be, and they are not combined as ketchups and chutneys and barbecue sauces, or there is some corn syrup or sugar added to it. That's when they go wrong. But on their own, condiments are very good. Yeah, the next one. The other set of friendly foods is nuts and seeds, which there's a list here. And the best ones actually are Brazil nuts, hazelnuts, pine nuts, macadamia, coconut, of course, cashew nuts, flax seeds. These are one of the best ones. Then, of course, you have pumpkin seeds, sesame, hemp seeds, chia. You can do an entire variety. Most of the time, they should be raw and they should be unsalted. And you can sometimes soak or slightly toast them while using. In the beverage bit, the friendly beverages are coffee without, of course, dairy in any form, clear broth, vegetable broth, chicken broth, even broth made with the long bones of the lamb, plain spirits without mixtures, and of course, all forms of good tea without dairy, black, green, white, herbal teas.
5 minutes to go.
Yeah, so yeah, this is just a list of friendly foods. Let's skip this, please. Let's skip this, please. Also, I've shared a list of unfriendly foods that we can go just see once and then go to the actual part. Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please. Yeah, this is the last bit that I wanted. Can you go back, please, Dr. Karishma?
Yeah.
So there's a list of although there is no dearth of nutritional supplements available and nutraceuticals that can support our physiology, I've just listed the ones that are directly helpful in helping us stay healthy and ensuring that our energy pathways, our metabolomics are taken care of. So I'll just name them: acetyl coenzyme A, because it's a part of the Krebs cycle; alpha lipoic acid, because it's naturally present in the mitochondria; arginine, because it's a precursor of nitric oxide, which is a neurotransmitter and vasodilator; ashwagandha, which is an adaptogen and has a serious effect on our physical and mental performance; carnitine, which is what, it transfers the long chain fatty acids and causes the beta oxidation in the mitochondria. The next slide, please. Coenzyme Q10, which is a part of the electron transport chain and is required for ATP production. In fact, cardiac muscles are particularly sensitive to coenzyme Q10 deficiency; iodine for normal thyroid function; iron to make hemoglobin, which can transport the oxygen. Metabolomics also always has, whenever you look at iron supplementation, vitamin C is always a formulation because it increases the bioavailability of iron. Magnesium required for production of ATP, the magnesium ATP complexes that we know of, and also because it's a part of the glycolytic pathway. Niacin, vitamin B3, which is a precursor of NAD and NADPH, which is the electron transport chain of the energy production pathways, and it's required for transferring electrons. And the last set of supplements is riboflavin, which is vitamin B12, because it's the FAD and the FMN, which is the electron carriers in the electron transport chain. Ribose, because it's a component of the ribose nucleic acid and also part of the deoxyribose nucleic acid, which is required for fueling the mitochondria. Thymine B1, because it is essential for nerve impulses and also for the production of acetylcholine. Vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid or L-ascorbic acid, and it is one of the most powerful antioxidants we know of. B complex, because many pathways in our metabolic systems are dependent on various forms of vitamin Bs. Yeah, thank you. That was from my end. I think that finished on time.
Thank you so much, Manjari ji. Okay, so we actually have a couple of questions in the chat box. There's one question that there is a school of thought saying seeds have many anti-nutrients. What is your opinion on this?
Yeah, we do know about the phytic acid components and anti-nutritional properties. So you do, know that you have to take the raw seeds, soak them. Sometimes you have to actually dry roast and powder them. So yes, so you have to put them through some sort of basic processing, but not deep fry or cook them too much like typically people would tend to do.
What is your recommended list of oils when it comes to food? And could you please give some light on that? And there's a question as well in regards to it. Why is mustard oil fine even if it's a seed oil?
Yeah, so mostly seed oils, as the person pointed out, are of course inflammatory, highly inflammatory. We are of course okay we're consuming mustard oil for 2-3 reasons. One, the type of mustard oil that is to be used is completely cold pressed extra virgin mustard oil. Also, genetically, for thousands of years, we've been using mustard oil. So our bodies have adapted to using mustard oil the right way. Other forms of seed oils like canola, rapeseed, or sunflower are completely not advised. The right type of fat for cooking, like Indian cooking, may be coconut oil, mustard oil, or ghee. But most of the time, what we do wrong with fat is we use it to overtly fry or cook our food. The right way of using fat is to drizzle it on our grilled or braised or boiled food or raw food. That's the right way of using fat.
Yeah, and just one last question. What is your take on sweet potatoes when it comes to youthful energy?
Yeah, of course.
The question yeah.
Many tubers like sweet potatoes and many others, even the tubers that are there have quick starch and quick energy that can have, contribute to your energy levels, but they're not the best when you look at long-term energy. Sweet potatoes are exceptionally good as compared to the other tubers because they're rich in micronutrients. They also have certain types of precursors to our hormones, and therefore they're also helpful for people who are dealing with hormonal issues. So sweet potato becomes one of the best tubers that otherwise is available besides beetroot.
Thank you so much, Ms. Manjari Chandra. There's definitely a takeaway for all the participants over here, speakers and panelists, onto how which kind of foods that needs to be used in terms of youthful energy. Thank you so much for joining us. There are a couple of questions. I would request you to stay for some period of time and just answer those questions.
I'll do it. Thank you.
So much. Thank you.